Hello, everyone. I would love to welcome Safa today from DHL. Thank you so much for joining us today, Safa.
Thanks for having me, Shantae.
Of course. Really appreciate you all coming out today, especially as a platinum sponsor for our Get Hired fair. Really excited to have you today.
Thank you. We're so excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I guess I will dive right into the questions today. So my first question for you is, what do you value the most in your initial interactions with students or recent graduates at the fair?
Yeah, something that we love about meeting like students and recent grads is how engaged they are, and like how passionate they are about wanting to start their career. So that's something that really stands out for us when we're interacting with students and recent grads. Another thing that we really pick up on very quickly is how much prep they've done. So if they've done any background knowledge or looked up any background knowledge on our company, even us, like if they've looked us up on LinkedIn, it's really cool to be able to like have something that we can conversate about.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's super important. And I think that if there's anything I can say about UTM students, they're definitely interested. They're super eager to come out to the fair and talk to all of you. So,
yeah, for sure.
So really appreciate that. And also for any students listening in, we do offer workshops to help you kind of do some of that pre-event prep. So if you're looking for that, come out to those workshops. And speaking of students, how important is a student's elevator pitch to you? And do you have an example of a memorable pitch that a student shared?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I actually connected with one of our sales managers about this because we do elevator pitch competitions at our company, DHL Express, internally. So I asked him, I was like, what stands out for you in an elevator pitch? And he actually said that it's not as important, but somebody who has actually taken the time, like I said previously, taken the time and effort to look into the company, look into like the key things that they're passionate about our company, and be able to speak to that efficiently and effectively, that's what stands out to us. And then as for like a memorable pitch, I would say it would just be the ones that we do internally. Like they stand out because they're so passionate and they understand like what our company's about, so they're able to speak to it really well.
No, that's super important, I think, and it really highlights how important that elevator pitch is, especially if you're kind of doing that in your own company, like even after students kind of graduate. And so I think it's super important to kind of be able to present yourself well when you're coming and speaking to employers. So I can see why that would stand out.
Exactly.
And in talking about standing out, can you tell us, how can a student stand out and become memorable to you, especially on a highly attended fair?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's so many people around and we're all like trying to conversate with like different people and there's a lot happening. So just being proactive with your engagement, right? Like coming up and saying hi, doing a handshake and like introducing yourself right off the bat, like we'll remember you, and coming with the company knowledge, right? Coming with some type of idea of where you want your career to go so that we can have a conversation about that. But yeah, bringing your resume is always a plus. Connecting with us on LinkedIn on the spot is also a plus. So just being visible, I think, is what I would say.
Awesome. No, and kind of theme that I'm seeing from everything that you're saying is do your research before you come.
Yes, exactly. It's so important to have that research because then I can guarantee you will stand out.
Yeah, that's a great point, and definitely one that students definitely need to remember kind of coming in. The more prepared you are, the more comfortable you are. The more comfortable you are, the more you stand out.
Exactly.
Awesome. And then can I ask, Safa, are you using any type of technology in your screening processes, such as applicant tracking systems? And if so, do you have any tips for students that want to stand out in those processes?
Yeah, so we do internally use an ATS, and we are actually transitioning ATSs to include a little bit more of like an AI usage into it. We also use LinkedIn Recruiter. We use like Microsoft Forms. So we use a bunch of different platforms to do our recruitment. A way to stand out or like have your resume like seen by the recruiter, I would say, is to reflect your resume as closely to the job that you're applying for, so that it matches exactly what we're looking for, right? Because ATSs have like search functions that we can look up like keywords. So having your resume reflect the job that you're applying for is super, super important.
Yeah, no, for sure. Keywords are super important. I think even outside of an ATS, if someone is just reading your resume, I always say bold some of those key points, because
Exactly.
you never know. Someone looks at your resume for 10 seconds and it just needs to stand out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I agree.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And so speaking of kind of that hiring process, what advice would you give to students that are trying to break into this industry?
Yeah, so honestly, like just being open to learning is the number one thing, because we're logistics is not sexy by any means, but it is an ever-growing industry, and it's consistently evolving. So just being open to learning about it, being open to gaining that knowledge and experience, I would say is super important to breaking into our field, and also being open to having different opportunities, right? Like you may want to start off in HR, but let's say that you have an opportunity in operations. I would say being open to that, I think, is super important, because that opens you up to so many more opportunities and experiences.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, because I think sometimes when we're studying and kind of looking to find our first jobs, we sometimes get really caught up in that ideal job. And, it's super important to, as you said, keep your mind open to opportunities that come your way. You never kind of know where those steps will take your career. They might come out even better than you thought they would.
Exactly. We get tunnel visioned when we're looking for like specific roles to like our departments or like our backgrounds, our educational backgrounds. But just being open to growth, I think, will definitely help with breaking into this field.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Safa. And my last question for today. You were once in the same shoes as a lot of students that you're meeting today. What advice would you give to those of them that are feeling discouraged in their job search today?
Boy, was I ever.
Me too.
I would say being persistent. Like, I know that everyone says it and it's easier said than done, but just being persistent. I think even with all of the technology that we have as recruiters, like we have our ATSs, we have our LinkedIns, whatever, at the end of the day, it is people that hire people. Staying visible, networking is super important. So come out to events like this, do your online networking, whatever you can do to make your visibility more prominent, I would say is super important, and that'll help with the job search, because like I said, people hire people.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think that's a really key point that you mentioned, because at the end of the day, no matter how much technology we have, you really can't replace the actual human aspect of hiring and working. And so I think it's super important to remember, as you said, that persistence really builds resilience as well. And I think it's a skill that kind of takes you far in your life after too.
Exactly. I agree.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your insight today, Safa. I really appreciate having you here at the fair today and taking the time to answer these questions.
For sure. Thank you so much for having us.